last week we started looking at how sin progresses. We looked at some of the basics of sin. Well, you know what James tells us how sin starts out as a desire, starts out as a notion, then it's conceived, and then it gives birth, and it grows, and we kind of use the illustration of a garden getting weedy, how it gets overgrown. And we're going to go all the way back to the very beginning, to the original sin. We're going to take a look at that. Because to be honest with you, we've already covered this as we went through 1 John. Pride of life, lust, ways of the world, that sort of stuff. We're going to see every one of those characteristics in the fall. We're going to see that same trap, that same allure. And when we apply that in the fall, when we apply that to our personal life, we can see and understand that nothing has changed. So as we go through this, we'll start reading in Genesis 3. We'll start with verse 1, and we'll kind of break it down as we go along. It says, "Now the serpent was more cunning than any beast of the field that the Lord had made. And he said to the woman, Has God indeed said, You shall not eat of the trees of the garden?" Notice, this ties back to last week. Notice who's doing the tempting. Remember what we talked about in James last week? It's not God that tempts us. So we can't say God made me do it. God made me this way. That excuse doesn't fly because that's not what's going on. It says the serpent didn't cause Eve to sin either. But you notice the serpent is providing opportunity for sin. He is making sin look nicer than what it is. He's cleaning it up. He's appealing to her desires by providing something that she thinks will be an improvement to her life. And at this point, no sin has happened. Just temptation. Adam and Eve have not sinned at this point. Having that notion is not sin. Having the temptation is not sin. And the reason we can say that with confidence is, remember in Hebrews it tells us Jesus was tempted in all points yet without sin. Okay, if temptation was sin, then Christ's sacrifice wasn't sufficient. And we know Christ's sacrifice is all sufficient. So at this point, nothing has happened. There's just the temptation. But if you look at the wording, that temptation comes in. Has God not said, you shall not eat of the trees? What he's saying, he's twisting what God has said just a little bit to get Eve to start questioning what God has said. How is it we can have all of the trees but this one? And what the serpent has just told her is you can't have any of the trees. She's like, no, that's not true. And as this goes on, we'll see that, that's really not true. And the woman said to the serpent, "We may eat of the fruit of the trees." See how she's responding? That's not a true statement. But the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said, "You shall not eat, nor shall you touch it, lest ye die." Okay. Her response opened the door for a conversation. This is how it's progressing. Okay, that first couple verses there, it was just a notion. Hey, what do you think of that? Well, at this point, Eve continues the conversation. She engages the serpent in conversation. She continues it, which leads her further away from God's commandment. And now we may think, well, this is just a little conversation. This isn't that big a deal. It's no big thing. But what's happening is she's slowly being drawn away, and she doesn't realize it. And that's what happens to us too. We'll have something, we'll have a thought, and what we do is we'll entertain that thought for just a little bit. And think, no, I shouldn't be thinking about that. And that rebellious nature that is in all of us because of this goes right back to that thought, goes right back to it. So what we start doing is we start having this internal conversation. And that's what's going on here with her. She's having an internal conversation, but we're actually privy to the external conversation that she's having with that serpent. And as this would apply to our own life, do you not think that, I mean, am I the only one that talks to himself? I know I'm not.
Yes.
No, I'm not. We all
Do you
have
answer
to.
yourself too?
Yes, I do. We all have those conversations within our head. No, this is right, this is wrong. All that goes on. That's what we're talking about here, this conversation. As we entertain that negative, that sin, that temptation, it's going to progress in our life because it's still in our mind. We haven't put a stop to it. Now the serpent said to the woman, "You will surely not die. For God knows that the day you eat of it, your eyes will be open, and you will be like God, knowing good from evil." Now the serpent just made a claim that he cannot back up. He just made a promise that he will never be able to deliver on. Can you see how the progression started? Now it's went from these trees to that tree to that particular tree to that particular fruit. And that, as that conversation continues, what's happening is he's getting further and further away from the truth, if you notice. And Eve is becoming less and less resistant to his wiles, and still hasn't committed sin, but as you can tell from this, we're getting pretty close. See, so what the serpent has done is says, well, what about that? And what about this? And makes a wild, exaggerated claim. Eve doesn't die immediately as soon as she touches the fruit. The serpent knew that. He knew that if she held on to it, she wouldn't physically die, but she'll spiritually die. See, that's how he'll come at us. He won't give us the whole truth. And that's what's going on here. So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, that it was pleasing to the eyes, remember, lust of the eyes, lust of the flesh, good for food, and that it was desirable to make one wise, there's the other one, she took the fruit and she ate it, and she gave it to her husband.
How did it make her wise?
Wise in the ways of good and evil, to know the difference. It says a tree desirable to make one wise. That's her thought. This tree will make me wiser. It will make me be like God and know good from evil. It doesn't make her wiser. She thinks it's going to make her wiser because of what the serpent has been telling her. Hey, this is going to be a great thing for you guys. You guys will be like God.
Reminds me of the lure of drugs or alcohol. This will expand your mind.
Oh yeah, it'll expand your mind. Yeah.
Or transcendentalism or a lot of other things.
You're right. Go get your palm ready, your tarot cards, or whatever. You can see into the future. And it's the same book. It really is. You can be like God. You know your future. No, you can't.
No, I don't want it.
Yeah.
But what was Adam doing during all this time? He's right there. So what was Adam doing during all this conversation?
Failing.
Sailing?
Failing.
You said he was sailing. I said, no, wait a minute.
He was out trying to make a living.
The woman's out.
Yes, he was.
I'm shopping. I'm shopping.
Making it more difficult.
Yes, it did. Yes, it was.
Why didn't Satan attack the man? I mean, is there some purpose which reason he took the woman because she's weaker?
No. Nope. I don't know the exact purpose why he went after her first, but the serpent, the devil saw something in her that he could twist. And the problem is, Adam has already sinned. Huh? How has Adam already sinned? Adam already sinned because his job was to have dominion over that garden and her. Is he exercising dominion in the fact that is he protecting and providing for Eve at this point?
I tried that, and my wife threatened to kill me.
She threatened to kill him. There's a difference between having dominion and being a bossy person. But at this point, he actually has already sinned because he's already went against God's command because he's not protecting and providing for it. Adam, at this point, and at any of these 3 or 4 points along the way, should have stepped up and said something. But he didn't. So that's Adam's failure at this point. Now the text doesn't reveal where they were at when this takes place. We know they're in Eden. We know the tree is in the midst of the garden, but we don't know where they're at. So, we We don't know how close they were to the fruit when this conversation started. But what we do know is that Satan, the serpent, got her to the tree. Whether she was near it, got her over there to it. At first, she just had a mental image. When they were just having the initial conversation, they were just talking about a tree. Then, he gets her to that tree and shows her a physical image of that tree. That's how she could see that the tree was this and see that the tree was that. And at each point in that conversation, she was losing her ability to resist. At each point, she became less sensitive or desensitized to the fact that she's being lured away. Let's not become too harsh or too critical of her or of him. God already knew this was going to happen. But let's recognize that this is still how that method works. See, because an image of something over there is one thing. An image of something right here is a whole lot harder to resist right here than it is to resist over there. And that's how this is progressing. It's moved from the mental to now physical. She actually has the tomato in her hand at this point. And the conversation, like I said, leads to the mental, leads to the physical, and the serpent gave her that mental, then provided her the physical image of it, and he finally got her to touch the object. And that one thing, that once was no big deal, it's just a conversation, is now she is standing there, holding that ill-gotten fruit in her hand. She's about a breath away from outright sin and rebellion. And their eyes were open, which of course that last verse took and ate. She gave it to her husband and he ate. Adam's failed twice now, failed to protect her, then went ahead and joined in. Then the eyes of both of them were open, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made for themselves coverings. First consequence of sin and rebellion against God is shame. They were naked and ashamed. They were. How could they be ashamed? There was nobody there to compare themselves to, but they still did, and they were naked and ashamed. And then they heard the sound of the Lord walking in the presence of the garden in the cool of the day, and Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord among the trees of the garden. The second consequence of shame, the second consequence of rebellion and sin is fear. Fear of God. And the Lord called out to Adam and said, "Where are you?" Third consequence of sin or rebellion, hiding from God. These three consequences, shame, fear, and hiding, still exist today. They still remain today. A person in sin, that is aware of sin, does these three things. They're ashamed of the sin. They're afraid of God because they think God's going to hit them with a lightning bolt. And they hide from God. I think we all know people that are hiding and running from God. At some point in our lives, I think even we have personally have experienced this. And occasions, all three at the same time. There's a sinful situation in our life, when it's a continuance and we know it, we start to separate our things from the self. We'll separate our things from ourselves from the things of God. We'll start pushing it back away from church, we'll start pushing it back away from prayer, we'll push it back away from fellowship with other believers, push back away from the Bible, because we know that if we continue in fellowship, that there will be a confrontation of the sin. We don't want to deal with that confrontation. And we're going to see why we don't deal with the confrontation. As this goes on, it reveals itself. So Adam said, "I heard your voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked and I hid myself." And he said, "Who told you you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree which I commanded you not to eat?" God already knows what happened. It was going to happen beforehand because remember the lamb that was slain before the foundations of the earth were laid? God already had the plan of redemption in place. Already knew this was coming. God's not surprised. So we ask ourselves, so why does God have to ask? God is asking Adam and Eve to repent. He's asking them to confess. confession always comes before forgiveness. You can't be forgiven for something you haven't confessed and repented of. That's exactly what's going on here. That's exactly the same thing the way God deals with us. We have to confess before we're forgiven. And then, another consequence of sin, I call it the blame game. Then the man said, the woman you gave me to be with me, she gave me of the tree and I ate it. Adam doesn't just blame Eve for the sin, he blames God as well. Because it was God's fault. He should have gave him somebody other than Eve.
Well, that's true.
Well, no, it's not.
Yes, it is.
How is that true? How is it God's fault?
No, it's Eve's fault.
It's not Eve's fault
Oh,
either.
she's the one that screwed everything up.
Oh, yeah.
Just look at the women
But
today.
did you
They
not
screwed
hear
everything
me
all up.
say that Adam failed initially because he did not protect her? Adam was given the command, not Eve.
You only overwrap so much.
Yep.
Well, then the woman should listen to the man all the time, then, right?
Good luck with that.
Well, see? How are they supposed to learn if they won't listen?
How are these?
And
How
do you listen?
yeah. Now,
You notice he's not answering that.
yeah.
What, just
Now we
listen?
don't know whether it's pride or ego or arrogance or self-defense as to why he done this.
All of the
Why he
above.
blamed Eve and blamed God. But we do know this. Pride, arrogance, and that self-defense did not exist until he bit that apple. Then they existed. And then the blame game started. And then mankind and womankind have been playing the blame game ever since. It is not my fault I am this way. It is Eve's fault. It is not my fault that my parents were short and now I'm short. It's not my fault. It's not my fault. It's not my fault. And that's exactly where this started. That whole it's not my fault. And let's take a look at this. This blame game is terrible. I mean, it's just absolutely immature and irrational. Has the blame game ever worked out? No. And the Lord said to the woman, "What is this you have done?" And the woman said, "The serpent deceived me." You see that there? She now blames the serpent. She's passing the buck. So, because they blamed it on the serpent, they shirked their responsibilities and passed the buck. How does God handle it? He glosses over it, glazes over it, and says, "It's all good, kids. Let's start over." No, that's not what happened. The Lord said to the serpent, "Because you have done this, you are cursed more than all the cattle, more than every beast of the field. You shall go on your belly, and you shall eat dust all the days of your life. And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between her seed and your seed. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel." God has already got the plan of redemption in place. He's already telling Eve that someday a woman, Eve, as you read through Genesis, thinks it's her, but someday a woman will give birth to a Savior. That's why they get the name Seth, because they thought he was going to be the Savior. Even though that's centuries away, God still puts it in motion. He still gets it going. And to the woman he said, "I will greatly multiply your sorrow, and in your conception you will have pain, and you shall bring forth children. Your desire shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you." And then he said to Adam, "Because you have heeded the voice of your wife, and you have eaten of the tree which I have commanded you, that you should not eat, cursed is the ground for your sake. In toil you shall eat of it all of your days of your life, but thorns and thistles it shall bring forth for you, and you shall eat of the herb of the field, and in the sweat of your face you shall eat bread, till you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken, for dust you are, and dust you will return." Well, the blame game didn't work out for them for a while, did it? And it still doesn't work out for us either. I mean, how many times have we went to God to confess, you know, it was just this thing, and it ain't my fault I lied, it ain't my fault I stole, it ain't my fault I did this or that or the other thing, it was just, you know, peer pressure, it's just this, and it's just that. Bottom line of it is, blaming sin on others is not going to rectify our sin situation. We all, because of this, because of the fall. We all have inherited a sin nature. And there's another a lie that is unbelievably told. My sin has no effect on anyone else. Wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong. That is a huge lie. Every sin in our life has an effect on someone, at least one other person. Adam and Eve's sin has had effect on how many more generations than I think I can count. Because we're going to look at some of the other sins in the Bible, how they progressed. Sin always has an effect and an impact on everyone else around us. Whether it's how we react to them because of the shame, the fear, the rebellion, the hiding, the blame game because of those things. But it always comes back over to roost, if you will. And then Adam called his wife Eve because she was the mother-in-law. Also, for Adam and his wife, the Lord made skins of tunics, or tunics of skin, and clothed them. This is the very first blood sacrifice. There is no remission of sin without the shedding of blood. Their sin had an impact on some of the animals, because some animal, let's say which one, had died. And the Lord God said, "Behold, the man has become like one of us, to know good and evil, and now at least he put his hand also to the tree of life, and eat and live forever. Therefore the Lord sent him out of the garden to till the ground from which he was taken. So he drove the man out, and he placed a cherubim on the east of the Garden of Eden, with a flaming sword which turned every way to guard the way back to the tree of life." They lost something that they had very little opportunity to experience. You can't venture to guess, if you will, as to how long they were in the garden before this happened. But as quick as the story goes, I find it hard to believe that they were in the garden a very long time before this came about. There was an entire Garden of Eden, we have no idea how big it is, that they didn't get the opportunity to explore. They didn't get the opportunity to actually enjoy the tree of life. They didn't get the opportunity for that fellowship with God anymore, that close fellowship like they had previously. God would come down and walk with them. The question I ask, and we have to ask ourselves is, how much do we miss out on because of sin? Because of how it hinders us, because of how it holds us back, because of how it negates our fellowship with God. And that there being the very key thing, the fellowship with God. How much does that cost us? Can you see how the sin progresses in our lives? I mean, is that clear? You know, it starts out here and it works its way. It starts out as a thought, a temptation, and it moves its way towards sin. Anything on the blame game? I think we all know about the blame game. If you have ever been an adult, or even a teenager, I mean, you guys probably see the blame game all the time in school. You two are siblings. You have probably played the blame game with each other. It's Kayla's fault. No, it's not. It's Morgan's fault. Since Austin ain't here, it's Austin's fault. It's usually how it goes, yeah. And it accomplishes nothing. It doesn't, obviously it doesn't fly with God.
Just sometimes.
Oh, usually, oh, okay, so it flies sometimes, huh? Yeah, it may fly with mom and dad, but I don't think the fool got it. And then that last question was, have you ever played the game, blame game? And we obviously haven't mentioned that. I think we all do to a certain extent because we have that guilt, that shame, and that fear of being found out, being caught. You know, it's like, oh no, it wasn't me, it was an accident. You know, something else. You guys got any questions? All right then. Next week we will look at David's sin with Bathsheba in 2 Samuel 11. We'll go through that and break it down as to how it progressed from a peeping Tom situation to outright murder.